In this photo, knowing that Chris Bumstead is the 5-time Olympia champion, and Carlos is holding his own, if not potentially beating him, mogging Chris, do you really think that he's natural? Coach Greg, and today we're going over a long overdue natty or not on Carlos Belcast.
Are you natty or not?
I never in all my career as a fitness athlete answered that question.
And so you may have seen this guy. He's associated with Chris Bumstead. He's sponsored by Get Raw Nutrition as well as Gymshark. And with 4 million followers, he's one of the most popular fitness models in the world. So many people have said this is Brian Lopez's brother, perhaps his twin. And so let's first check into that. And so Los Bell twins confirman ser hermanos. And so are they in fact brothers?
Lo que el rifle está igual, güey. Hasta el mismo color, mano. A ver. O sea, el peso, sin ponernos de acuerdo, llegamos con el mismo outfit.
And so let us put that to rest. Remember, I am in fact somewhat Spanish, and so I do in fact know what they're saying. Or perhaps there was close translator. I'll let you decide. And so although they dress the same way, they act the same way, they have so many things in common. We're from Mexico. They're not actually brothers. And so Carlos is only 24, Brian is 25. And so if they were in fact brothers, Carlos would be el hermano menor. And Brian obviously would be el hermano major. And so let's get into if he's natty or not. And so about a month ago, he posts a before and after transformation. And remember, when I do natty or nots, it's not based on just how good they look right now. If it was, what if they have amazing genetics? If they have the best genetics in the world, you could in fact look as good as Carlos or better while being 100% natural. And so what I mostly look for is how fast are they making these changes? If they were making slow, steady progress over a long period of time, then suddenly out of nowhere, they make a lot of progress. Well, that's a telltale sign that they're not natural. And so he literally does my work for me. He does a before and after transformation from just over a month ago. And so 79 kilograms, it's about 174 pounds, February 29. And so the end of February, he's about 174 pounds and looking very good. And then let's see his transformation. Oh, the after, 87 kilograms. That's 192 pounds. So let me summarize this. He gained 18 pounds, but how long did it take him? Was it a 1-year transformation? 18 pounds in a year is very impressive, but he may have done it natural. And so let's see how many months, weeks, years did it take? 2 weeks. And so I don't make this shit up. I simply report the news. He has a before and after transformation, of which in 2 weeks he put on 18 pounds. 2 weeks. That's more than 1 pound a day. Now, remember, it's of course possible that he was taking turkesterone. He might have been using Coach Greg supplements in secret. Wouldn't have told Chris Bumstead about it. And maybe with the benefit of this, maybe could have gained 4 or 5 pounds. Maybe, who knows? But could he have put on 18 pounds? I'm asking you, 18 pounds in 2 weeks, does that sound reasonable? 2 semanas. And so really think about it. Let it sink in. How many of out there are going to put on 18 pounds in 2 weeks? If I said, hey everyone, I'm natural, I'm using all my supplements, turkesterone and so on, and I put on 18 pounds in 2 weeks, how many of you would believe me? Would anyone believe me? I don't think so. And so already I'm going to say there's no way I believe that Carlos is natural. But you're thinking, oh, it might have been just water weight. He might have gained 18 pounds of water. Really? 18 pounds of water. You really think he drank 8 kilograms of water he stored in his body somehow? How would he do that? What do you think, this guy is a puffer fish? Like, how is he sucking in 2 4-liter jugs of water, putting it on his body? But maybe it was all fat. Maybe he gained 18 pounds of fat in 2 weeks. Do you know how many calories you need to gain 18 pounds of fat? Well, let's do the math. 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat. And so to gain 18 pounds of fat in 2 weeks, you need to be in a calorie surplus in 2 weeks of 63,000 calories. And so let's divide that by 14. And so if he were in a calorie surplus of 4,500, let's assume his maintenance was somewhere around 3,000 calories. He'd need to eat 7,500 calories a day for 2 weeks to put on 18 pounds of fat. And so in the before, looking very lean, see a little bit of vascularity, and we can't see the legs. They're covered up. As a little bit of a 10, looking not bad, certainly not single-digit body fat, but he looks pretty good. And in the after, look at the difference. Now, granted, he's not quite as chiseled up. He's not quite as lean, but perhaps he put on a couple percent of body fat, perhaps 2%. He looks to have been in a massive calorie surplus. He's clearly eating more calories than last time, and his body fat percentage perhaps went up 2%. That would be about 3.5 pounds of fat. And so of the 18 pounds that he gained, perhaps 3 or 4 was fat, but that still leaves 14 pounds. And so 14 pounds in 2 weeks is about a pound a day of lean tissue. Now, I know you're going to lose your minds if I say it's muscle. Remember, lean tissue is muscle, and muscle is composed of water. And so he's clearly bulked up tremendously. In 2 weeks, 18 pounds. If you are natural, how many of you think that you're just going to gain 18 pounds and most of it's going to be muscle? This would be the dream situation. If it was actually true, then Michael Herman would be right. Just eat 4,000 calories a day, you're going to turn into a superhero. But what I do believe to happen here is that he took anabolics. Don't know which ones, don't care. But if you're putting on 18 pounds in 2 weeks and the majority of it looks to be muscle, not all fat, then I do believe that this is not natural. You can debate me, you can hate me, you can argue with me, you can think that I'm against Mexicans, whatever. Remember, I am in fact studying Spanish. And so why would I be spending hours and hours every single week for months on end if I was against Mexicans? I travel to Mexico all the time. I'm practicing to speak the language. I even have a tutor from Colombia 3 times a week working on perfecting the language. And so do you really think that I'm biased, that I hate on Carlos, that I just don't like him? Or do you think I'm giving you my honest, unbiased, and unfiltered opinion? And so this is what's wrong with society these days. I don't get it. This has 12.7 million views, and it's going mundial. It's going worldwide. This is what you aspire to be. This is why you want to get 4 million followers so that you can do this mediocre dance. Bailar. And so many of you are going to say, well, look at him in his photo with Chris Bumstead. Clearly, Chris Bumstead, we know, admittedly is on performance-enhancing drugs. And Carlos, in comparison, he is in fact a lot smaller. And so it could, of course, get that much muscle while being natural, right? Wrong! Just because Chris is much bigger than him doesn't mean that anyone smaller than him is natural. Chris is a massive human being. He's 6'1", probably 260 pounds in this photo. Carlos, who's a little bit shorter, of course he's going to look smaller. But trust me, almost everyone standing next to Chris, even guys on performance-enhancing drugs, they're going to look small in comparison. Chris is a professional bodybuilder at the elite level. He's literally a 5-time Olympia champion. And so although he's not quite as big as Chris Bumstead, he still does not appear to be natural. And remember, have you ever heard of mogging? Do you know what mogging is when you make somebody look small in comparison? Chris was mogging Carlos in that photo. Do you really think that Chris is that much bigger than Carlos? Well, in that photo, he appears to be. But what about this one? Exhibit B. You thought you had me? Oh, he's so much smaller than Chris. This proves Carlos is natural. Coach Greg, you're a moron. In this photo, who looks bigger than who? I ask you, Exhibit B, examine the photo. If you had not told me anything, I would argue that Carlos looks just as big as Chris Bumstead. And look at how small his waist is in comparison to his arms. Arms look bigger than his waistline. And so in this photo, knowing that Chris Bumstead is the 5-time Olympia champion, and Carlos is holding his own, if not potentially beating him, mogging Chris, do you really think that he's natural? Really think about it. And next, Exhibit C and D. Look at Carlos in comparison to Chris. Carlos is mogging Chris. You know what mogging means, and you know it's undeniable. And so do you really think that some guy's natural, that he's 24 years old, and he's going to have the same kind of size comparable to Chris Bumstead? Really? Especially after we just saw the guy put on 8 kilograms, 18 pounds in 2 weeks. Not 2 years, 2 weeks. Now, although Carlos doesn't have full-blown gyno, clearly he does not. He does have what I call puffy nips. When you're on steroids, testosterone converts to estrogen, and that forms in the chest. Many times you'll see guys who are jacked, shredded, but for some reason their nipple area looks a bit softer. I do believe Carlos is exhibiting some gyno formation slightly. He does appear to have puffy nips in this photo. And so perhaps in some photos he doesn't have it. Perhaps he's on cycle, off cycle. Perhaps he's using some compounds that are more estrogenic than others. For example, if you're using Primo or Masteron, you're likely not going to see this. But if you're using something like testosterone or D-bol, you're going to have a much more likely chance of showing some kind of puffiness in the nipples. And so as he's sitting back here with the blue cap on, with the cell phone, with the quad in front, does this, I ask you, does this look natural? Does it pass the Natty eyes test? Now remember, it is possible to look enhanced and be natural, but for the most part, not likely. 99% of the time that somebody has a physique of this magnitude, this size, guy's not going to be natural. And so although it's possible to be natural and be this big, only about a 1% chance. And so one of the things I like to do when doing a natty or not is see what kind of genetics does this guy have. And so to do that, you have to go back to finding an old photo. We're able to dig up a photo of him when he was only 15. And so let us see what kind of genetics does this kid have, because after all, if he has amazing genetics at a very young age, he's much more likely to put on muscle while being natural. And so let us see, is he in fact better than he was back then? What kind of genetics does he have? And so at 15 years of age, you can clearly see that the guy does in fact have above average genetics. He has some muscle in his chest. He's very lean. He does almost have a vein in his bicep. And so he has slightly above average looking genetics. I don't think that most 15-year-olds look as muscled up as this guy. Now, does he have better genetics than Coach Greg? Absolutely not. When I was 15, I had way more developed than this. Much more muscle than he did. And so is it likely that a guy who looks like this at 15 is going to, at the age of 23, 24, have a physique almost as big as Chris Bumstead while being natural? I'm saying no. I'm saying I don't think it's possible. Maybe, perhaps 1 in a million chance that it's possible, but in this case, I don't believe it to be true. And as we swipe to the left, look at the difference. The delts in particular, the traps have more development, and you can see slightly puffy nipples. Not gyno, but certainly has the look of somebody who's not natural. When people are on performance-enhancing drugs, most of them have slight puffy nipples. It's perhaps from taking testosterone, not taking an anti-estrogen, whatever, but he does appear to have that look. Not to mention, when you're 100% natural, how likely it is that you're going to be both big and shredded at the same time? Not very likely. Is it possible? Well, of course. A rare individual, guy like Chris Bumstead, had he been natural, probably could have done it. But consider this, in today's day and age, with pressure from social media to fit in to get sponsors, after all, Carlos is likely a multi-millionaire. If you have 4 million followers on Instagram, you're sponsored by various companies, and you're not making millions of dollars, then you don't know what you're doing. He literally has way more followers than Coach Greg. And we know Coach Greg ain't hurting at the bank, now is he? And so imagine, why would he stay natural? Last I checked, and I've been to Mexico, you can get steroids legally. You can go to the store and buy them. And so why would he be natural? Is it because it's against his morals in Mexico? No one believes that you should take steroids. There's so much against it. Remember, it's not like the United States. It's not illegal. You can go and buy it. Be like going and buying protein powder at the store. It's not that hard to get. And so why wouldn't he take it? And do you not think that with more muscle, more conditioning, more shreds, do you not think he's going to be more popular? When people are swiping through Instagram, they're showing you the top 1% of the top 1%. And so if he has an incredible physique, do you not think he's more likely to get more followers? And with more followers, what happens? Gymshark sponsorship and collaboration and sponsorship with none other than Chris Bumstead. And so why would he be natural? And so if you had to bet your life, if your life was on the line, you had to bet, is he natural or not? What do you think is more likely? Do you think it's more likely that he's natural or more likely that he's enhanced? Answer that question honestly, and if I don't see every single person saying I think he's more likely not natural, then you're a freaking moron. Uno ano y seis meses de diferencias entre the two pictures. A year and 5 months between these full photos. This is the nail in the coffin. If you were on the fence until now, wait till you see this photo. Have you seen it yet? This is 1 year and 5 months apart. This is not 15 years of hard training. This is not being coached by Coach Greg and being on testosterone for 5 years. This is 1 year and 5 months apart. He went from having a little bit of muscle. Notice he's slightly more developed than when he was 15. Looks to have put on some muscle, but suddenly, remember I said earlier, if you slowly are putting on muscle, doing pretty good, then suddenly you put on a lot. That's the clear telltale sign that you're not natural. And so from the age of 15 to 18, so in 3 years, he went from that small boy that I said had pretty decent genetics, a little bit above average, to this man on the left, 18 years of age, 3 years of training. He clearly was doing very good. To me, excellent progress. The photo of him on the left, that is a very well-developed man. He looks exquisite. Nothing wrong with that. And he does appear to be natural. When I look at that photo on the left at 18, I think, yep, that's what natural training for 3 years looks like when you're a teenager. A teenager with slightly above average genetics. But 1 year and 5 months later, that looks like he's put more muscle in 1 year and 5 months by a lot than he had the previous 3 years of training. Now, you may or not believe this, but the science supports this. There's something known as newbie gains. When you first start going to the gym, that is the time when you're going to gain the most muscle. It's the easiest to put on muscle because you're new to the gym. When you're new to the gym, it's easier to gain. Just think of it. If you've never ran before and you start practicing running, the first several months or the first year, you're going to gain a lot of speed. You aren't a runner now, you are. You learn quickly. You run much faster. But 3 years later, you've been running harder than the last time. Are you going to suddenly run way faster after 3 years of training out of nowhere? You just become freaking Lance Armstrong of the Tour de France? I don't think so. And so how is it possible that he made that transformation in 1 year and 5 months? I'll tell you how. Performance-enhancing drugs. And even with performance-enhancing drugs, that is an amazing transformation. The vast majority of you, that's right, if you're watching this video right now, which hundreds of thousands of people are going to watch this, if you think that you can take performance-enhancing drugs and in a year and a half go from that guy to this guy, most of you are not going to happen. 99% of people that use steroids are not going to make this transformation. And so don't think, wow, look at the transformation. I also want to be Carlos. I also want to be sponsored by Chris Bumstead. I also want to be the Mr. Olympia champion. Probably not going to happen. 99% of you who use steroids, this is what's going to happen. You're going to put on perhaps 10, maybe 20 pounds of muscle. You're going to get acne. You're going to get gyno. You're going to have erectile dysfunction. You're going to have shit for blood work. You're going to shorten your life dramatically. You're going to have decreased HDL. That's the good cholesterol. Increases in LDL, the bad cholesterol. Your liver enzymes, it's going to suffer. Your kidneys can get damaged. You will most likely have high blood pressure and you will not be as healthy. And so if Carlos is natural, which I give him a 1 in 100 million chance that he's natural, he should be proud of himself. I know Coach Greg doesn't believe me. Perhaps most people don't believe me, but I believe me. Who cares what other people think? What matters is what you think. And if you think that you need to put on 30, 40, 50 pounds of muscle to appease the masses, to attract a girl, you're wrong. You don't need to. Be your authentic self. Be the best version of yourself. Can you be better today than you were yesterday and better tomorrow than you were today? I know that you can. I don't think that you can. I know you can. And so don't take steroids. You don't need them. Go to the gym, train harder than last time, and be the best version of yourself.
Because I think a lot of people it's super focused on that in other people. Like they don't try themselves to prove if you can achieve that naturally. So they're like putting excuses like, no, that's unnatural. He's not natty. But if you don't try it, if you're not like 100% disciplined with all your diet, your training and all that, you don't know where your potential can be. So try it and then talk,
And so let me know in the comment section, do you believe Carlos is natural or do you believe that he's enhanced? Do you think that my comments made sense? Will you in fact stay natural? And if you are in fact going to stay natural, of course, if you're beyond your teen years, you're in your 20s and you want to get HTLT supplements, use code Greg for 15% off. Supplements like Turk Builder and GO2 Max, Acti Builder, Creatine pre-workouts, Seco protein bars back in stock. You know you want these. Head over to the website and it's 15% off simply by adding code Greg. If you don't have any money, that's fine. Get the free diet and training program. Close to 50 pages. Join the 300,000 plus newsletter subscribers. And of course, we've got so many different books. Cookbook 3.1 is out, hard copy PDF. Also, the cookbooks, the Circle Diet book, the training books, so many various price points from cheap $49.99 going up to millions of dollars. I don't know. Coaching plans by me and my team. Don't forget to subscribe. Press the like button right now. Subscribe. Click the bell button. Watch the 2 bloops. And until next time, I am out.